Okay, people, today we're going to move on to another group of topics and we're going to talk about objects today. Mm-mm. Now, is there anything that I need to say before we commence this session? No, not really. Let's get the ball rolling. In the first part of this mock test, I'd like to ask you a few questions about yourself. Tang, please, let's talk about mirrors. Would you use mirrors to decorate your room? Tang, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hmm.
Uh, for room decoration, I think that mirrors are one of the most effective tools that you can use because, for example, when you have small or dark room, it will help the room size the most. A large mirror make can make the room have more natural light around and make the space more area.
Thank you. Well then, have you ever bought mirrors?
Actually, I have to say no,
Hmm.
because uh, it is it is a thing that exists in my house for a long time, so I don't feel the need to buy that.
Okay, fine. Let's continue then. Tell, please, do you usually take a mirror with you?
Um, I can say that in my bag, there's always have one to two mirrors because when I go out, I will need to touch up with my makeup and or I just want to see myself that if I look okay or not to meet all the people.
Okay. Well then, do you like looking at yourself in the mirror?
Um, I think it's definitely yes because really love myself, and I think it is um it is necessitable to um checking up my look.
Hmm. Okay,
To
fine.
check up
Thank
my
you.
look. Okay.
Let's continue. Let's talk about borrowing and lending things. Miss Rena, please. How do you feel when people don't return the things they have borrowed from you?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
How do you feel when people don't return the things they have borrowed from you?
Um, well, actually, for myself, I feel very comfy when they borrow things from me let, I'm consider myself like an easygoing person, so I just feel very comfortable or like willing to let others borrow things from me. For example, my pencils or like my hair clippers.
Thank you. Well then, do you like to lend things to others?
Actually, sometimes I don't feel really, I mean, like I am not willing to lend a lot of my personal items. But for most of cases, I just feel very comfortable and very happy when doing so because I think it is the way I show my care and my attention to others, like making them feel kind of fulfilled.
Okay, that's a weird way to answer the question, but well, fine, whatever. Chang, please. Have you ever borrowed money from others? Chang Võ, can you hear us? Ah, she's not responding. Hương, please. Have you ever borrowed money from others?
Well, I have never borrowed anything from other because I feel like I have enough, and if I want to borrow any money, I would like to ask my parents because I feel more comfortable doing so in case if I have to ask my friends, perhaps in the future. I just want to ask for just a little that I can give them, it's like as soon as possible because I want to preserve my dignity and my image as well. Because,
Thank you.
money is very, yeah.
Have you borrowed books from others?
Books, let me see, yes. So I love books. So absolutely, I borrowed many types of books from my friends at different stages in my life. So, for example, when I was a kid, studying at my starting school, then I would borrow some kind of textbooks from my friends in case I didn't have one.
Thank you.
And when yeah.
That should be fine. In the next part of the test, I'd like to ask you, not ask you, I want to give you a topic. You have 1 to 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to think about what you want to say, and then you can speak about it between 1 and 2 minutes. Okay, okay. Now just give me a moment. I need to show this topic on the screen. What am I supposed to do here? All right, so here's the topic. I'd like you to describe a traditional product in your country. You have 1 minute to make some notes first. Okay. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes. And don't worry if I stop you. Chang, please. Are you in the room with us? Chang Võ. Hmm. Okay. I'm gonna have to ask someone else then. Miss Rina, please.
Okay, so today I would like to talk about a conventional product from Vietnam that I find quite fascinating, and it is a flying kite. I mean, a traditional bamboo kite. Actually, it has been a part of Vietnamese culture for young generations, especially in rural areas. Um, I still remember the first time I had a chance to play with this. It was when I was a child, coming back to my hometown. I mean, visiting my hometown, and I had a chance to go to a rice field and saw many children and adults gathered there to fly kites in the late afternoon. It was kind of one of the activities I look forward to most because there weren't many forms of entertainment available back then in the countryside. And I still remember, the atmosphere surrounding kite flying. It was kind of a green space where I can stay away from the hustle and the bustle of the city life. And I still remember, the kite that I used was kind of fascinating. It is it is kind of selectively, sorry, it is carefully selected. I mean, like a made of bamboo, and shape of the frame and balance the kite properly so that it can kind of flies so smoothly in the sky. And actually, I also had a chance to try making a kite myself. But actually, like I have to say that it is quite a steep learning curve. So, I failed many times.
Thank you.
Um,
That should be fine. Right, just a moment. Okay, thank you. We're just gonna continue. One more person, please. So we're gonna talk about a traditional product in your country. Now, Chang Võ, are you with us or are you not? Are you
I'm
there?
here. I'm here. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, fine. Have
Did,
you been
did,
preparing for this
did you
topic?
call me before?
Yes.
I,
Yes.
sorry, I just grabbed something after work, so I'm sorry. So yeah,
Have you been preparing for
now,
this topic?
yeah,
Fine.
now.
Now,
Okay.
here's your shot. You have 1 to 2 minutes to talk about this topic. And don't worry if I stop you. You should start speaking now, please.
Yes. I'm going to describe about nón lá. I mean, a cornicle hat, which is a symbol of Vietnam culture. Uh, I got to know nón lá since I was a little kid, actually, but I gained a deeper appreciation for it when I was in a university student. At the time, my close friends invited me to visit her hometown because after a long day at school and we finally finished our project, so we decided to do something to relax, and my friends asked me to come to his house. So conical hat is one of the most traditional products, and it has a famous conical hat making village. So it's where in I Quảng Nam province. As soon as I arrived, I was captivated by the sight of people weaving palm leaves onto bamboo frames, and seeing my curiosity, and I mean his father, his my friend's father, he encouraged me to try, and as far as I remember, my stitches were uneven, but I did enjoy the moment back then. And from that moment, I quickly realized how meticulous and time-consuming that people need to put into to make effort into making a traditional nón lá. So I think it's one of the most unforgettable experience.
Thank you. That should be fine. That should be fine. There is usually a follow-up question, but as you can see on the screen, there is no follow-up question. So I'm gonna spare you the headache. Oh my God, for some reason I got to choose like the two people who would give me like the longest 2 minutes of my life whatsoever. Okay, fine. I have my notes here. Um, just a moment. We're gonna move on to speaking part 3 now. Just a moment. Just a moment. We're going to move on to speaking part 3. In this part, I'd like to discuss with you 1 or 2 general questions related to what you have been talking about. Now, let's talk about traditional products. Cảnh, please. What types of traditional products are popular in your country?
Well, there are many traditional products in my country, but the one thing I can think of now is the traditional kite that it had the shape of rectangular, I believe. Yeah, it is made of um, leather and some kind of bamboo that makes the core of the kite. And also, children always play with it in the afternoon when they get back home from schools. And yeah, I had the chance to joined them when I was in grade six, and that was a brilliant experience, I may say. Yeah, because it was like so peaceful playing with it.
Well, then, do you think that in the future, some of the traditional products in your country will disappear?
I may say so. Like, let's come back to the kite I just mentioned. I believe that if it is not protected, sooner or later it may disappear because, as you can see, um, our country is undergoing lots of urbanization and modernizations. Like the area for children to play with kites are becoming like smaller and smaller. I mean, um, overhead cables are everywhere now, and
Thank you. That should be fine. But then how about other traditional products apart from kites?
mm, okay. So let's take non-la as another example. Um, that one's what mostly used by mothers when I was younger, but now even my mom does not use this anymore because like there was so many other types of hat that are more like suitable and modern. Um, so maybe it will lose its like popularity sooner or later.
Thank you. Let's move on then. Joe, please. So why, well, in your opinion, why are traditional products important?
Mm, I haven't thought about this topic before, but if I have to say, I think that the traditional product can be the symbol of a country, and when the foreigner go to that country, they can when they saw the traditional product, they can understand the country's culture, and they can and I think that this that traditional product can be a souvenir for the foreigner tourists so that they can bring that to their home, and then they can have a good view for the country that they have with it. I think that's a
Thank you. But then, do you think that it's important for people to buy traditional products on a regular basis?
I don't really understand the regular basis.
On a regular basis, and you buy it regularly.
Oh, um, I think it is not that important because it depends on the budget when they go to another country. Like go to um if they go to have a trip to healing to heal to have a nice time with their family, or like escape from their hostile life, they can just relax and don't want to buy anything. But if they have the budget and they are really like that product, and that traditional product are special for them, they can buy it. So I think it depends.
Fine, let's continue. Chang, please. Let's talk about traditions. Do you think that traditions are important for a country?
Uh, in my opinion, I think tradition is one of the most important factor of a country because it reflects the identity of the nation, the culture, and many things that are related to that country.
Can you give me examples?
Well, we can take the cultural values as the example, like different area contains a lot of custom and tradition that are related to the residential people there. So they are really important because they reflect the lifestyle, the way of thinking of the people there, and their perceptions.
Thank you.
I
Do you
think
think that it's a good thing that some of the old traditions in your country are disappearing?
to be fair, that could never be a good thing
Mm,
because the government are striving for protecting the old values from older generations uh, so that the next generation can perceive many many long-lasting value that are related to their ancestors. So, and perhaps they can learn from that.
Thank you. Let's continue. Hương, please, let's talk about traditional products. Do you think that it is important for children to learn about the traditional products of their country?
So actually, I think I'm in two minds about this.
Mm,
So if it is kind of suitable with their school curricula, then it is. So for example, I think children, if they learn about traditional products, for example, conical hats, right? They learned that in the past, during the harvest seasons, then the local artisans and the farmers and people in that villages gather together to make this kind of product. Maybe they will learn about the history and some kind of cultural practices in the past as well. So it will help them to kind of develop a kind of sense of self when they grow older. But in case for other kind of traditional products, I don't think that is too necessary for them. I think if they learn about that, it will add some kind of knowledge and values to themselves, but it is not crucial.
mm. But then, um, how can we help children appreciate traditional products more in this day and age?
So I think there are many creative approaches nowadays, especially at schools, right? So one of the most practical advice and like initiative that I have observed in my community is that teachers would bring children, I mean like younger ones, to some of the remote areas or some villages that actually create those kind of products, and
Thank you.
they
But
have
then,
this.
is there anything that can be done outside of school to help children appreciate traditional products more?
Yes, so as I've been talking, it's like they can get in touch with the local artisans that create those kind of products, and maybe they can actually get to know the process of making those products, right? From creating the materials to combining things
Thank
together
you.
and
But
create
then,
the final
do you
product.
think that parents will actively organize the activities that you have mentioned for their children? Or how can they, provide their children with that sort of experience?
Yeah. So actually, I think during their, summer vacations, right? So children, they have 3 months, you know, and parents, they can take the younger ones to some kind of villages or maybe their hometown where they can explore some green paddy fields and farmers and the local artisans there and ask their experiences of
Thank you. That should
making.
be fine. Right. That should be it for today's interrogation. I thought that some of you did a good job. Some of you hit the ground running, but couldn't really like maintain your rhythm. Others had a rather rough start, but then you were able to like, hit your stride, and things certainly got better over time. Um, for Chang, I have today that today is not your day. I mean, we have days like that. Like like when you do the test or when you like practice, there's certainly days on which you are like the champion and you can essentially tick out all the boxes. But there are days on which it's really hard for you just to perform at the bare minimum level, right? And unfortunately, today is that day for you. Like you were certainly able to answer my questions, but I also felt like, you were so out of your element the entire time. Now that is the general impression, and I can probably pinpoint a few errors here, but like when I was listening to you, I couldn't like register any sort of confidence in your answers. Perhaps it was because you were given really hard questions, or maybe the topics that we were discussing were very challenging for you. I don't know, but you were missing that element of confidence, right? Here, like um for your topic, your part one questions, you were able to answer your questions, but um it just didn't sound natural to my ears, Like mirrors are an effective tool, and it's fine, but I think it's better and more natural to say that, well, mirror are great choices when it comes to decorating your room. That's fine, right? But to be honest, I hate mirrors. I mean, I have no idea what you were talking about. But sure, to each his own. The rest of your answer was fine. For the first question and then for the second question, like all the content was perfectly understandable, but you didn't sound natural to my ears. It sounds like you were trying to like translate Vietnamese into English at the back of your mind. Perhaps you were not doing that, but what you need to do is to give me, I guess like chunks that could be delivered in a slightly faster pace or a slightly larger, longer chunk than the ones that you delivered, right? Because like in my opinion, all of your chunks sounded the same, right? And they were a bit slow as well. So work on that. Content wise, everything was understandable. Now for Cho, I feel like you're on the cusp of improving. You're not improving by a landslide, but you are improving. I feel like you're regaining your confidence. And like I'm not quite sure if it's fair to say that you have like started to regain your momentum. But I would say that, today your answers were more confident than what you did last week. Okay. There are a couple of mistakes, of course. Now, two mirrors. It's not O, it's One more time. Two mirrors.
Two mirrors.
It's a very clear mirrors.
Two mirrors.
Not at the end. You don't need to bend it like that. It's not mirror. It's just mirrors.
Mirrors.
Yeah, no R at the end. I know that there's the letter R at the end, but you're not supposed to put like a lot of emphasis on it. It's just mirror.
Okay.
Now catch up with my makeup. That was a weird
Uh,
face.
I mean touch up is dập lại với các bạn.
Catch
Touch up.
up. Well, then your
Yeah.
pronunciation was horrible.
Okay.
Fix,
Okay.
or you can say use fix my makeup or touch up my makeup. All right, that's
Okay.
fine too. Necessity. I mean,
I think that I
you
forgot.
certainly, you certainly took some creative licenses while making up this word. It didn't work, by the way, but still, it's necessary. Okay?
Okay, necessary.
No, it's necessary.
Necessary.
No, necessary is the first syllable, not the second syllable that is stressed.
Necessary.
Okay, fine. Ah, let's continue borrowing and landing. Um, For Miss Rena, for both Miss Rena and Hung, I would say that I wanted to make like a general statement regarding you two, but I can't seem to put a finger on it. For Miss Rena, I'm something it you talk about the fact that you were willing to just, lend people things, and it didn't really like get on your nerves that they would not return the object that they have borrowed from you. I think that I understood your message, but the phrase that you used sounded a bit robotic, right? You could have said, well, it doesn't really bother me, right? It doesn't really bother me. For for most cases, okay, for most cases, and then making them fulfilled. That was a really corny way to talk about. Do you like to lend things to others? I mean, well, you were able to answer my question, but I don't think that you would ever say something like that in Vietnamese.
Maybe kind of a people pleaser.
Okay. Well, it's not in my dictionary. I'm not that good at pleasing people based on the way that I reply to their messages. But ah, Miss Rena, I just thought that it was a weird way to
Okay.
extend your answer. You could have said something else, you know. Um, you like to lend things to others, or I'll say yes, and it's mostly because, well, I guess I like to help people. I mean, when someone, shows up at work and that person doesn't have like enough money to buy a drink, then I want to lend them some money just because I can. And I guess it's because I'm quite, a generous person. Not that I'm flaunting myself, but it's a good feeling knowing that I can lend, a helping hand when it's necessary. It's more natural that way, don't you think?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I would recommend you to give examples instead, Miss Rena, because again, like when you like just try to explain things in general terms, you tend to, go down the rabbit hole, like trying to like, give corny reasons to questions that are supposed to be very specific. Okay. Now, as for Hương, your answers were all fine. Give them as soon as possible. Give them back the money as soon as possible. Okay? That's all. Now let's move on to part two. Miss Rena struck again. I have to say that, Miss Rena and Chang Vo, you two gave me like the longest 4 minutes of my life. Oh my God. I was looking at the stopwatch, and like after the first part of your speech, I thought that it was just about time to wrap things up. But then you actually had 1 more minute to go. Oh my God. I mean, not quite sure why, to be honest, because I understood everything you said, but again, I feel like you two need to, drum things up a little bit. Sometimes there are phrases that you need to go through really fast, but there are phrases that you need to stretch out a bit more. But for the both of you, I felt like even though your pronunciation was very clear, like all of the words were equally clear. All of the words sounded the same to my ears. I guess that was why I felt like time basically stopped, when you guys were talking. Oh my God, each of your speech was like the longest 2 minutes of my life ever. So I would recommend both of you to try to switch things up a little bit and go through certain phrases a bit faster. Instead of like trying to cover all of the words with the same level of clarity. But then again, I'm starting to sound like a broken record here. You need to do something about it because, like, from my perspective and from my experience coaching other, high scoring candidates, it might be what would make or break your performance when you do the test. Your examiner can be super monotonous. Your examiner can have like, a few issues trying to conjure up questions for you, especially in speaking part three, but you can't really do the same, right? And they can essentially ask all the questions using the same tone, but you cannot do that. You have to demonstrate that you can use chunks of different lengths. Sometimes you go really fast, sometimes you go really slow. I'm pretty sure that Miss Chi also covers that particular aspect of our speaking training on her during her Tuesday sessions. So you need to pay attention during these classes. Like there was nothing wrong with what you said, the two of you. There was nothing wrong with what you guys said, content wise. I just felt like where was the rhythm? Where was the diversity in terms of rhythm? Oh, never mind. So you two need to work on that, okay? Now play with it. Play with it, not it's. Right? Extra S. Child's. Child. The atmosphere where where I could would be a lot better. You said I used. It's not you, it's used. One more time, please. That I used.
That I used.
No, it's not you, it's you. There must be a you here.
Used.
Yes, that I used.
That I used. That I
No,
used.
don't think too much about it because you're relapsing. That I used. There must be a used.
Oh. That I used.
Yes, there must be a yo there. There must be a yo there. It's not you. It's not you. You wasn't like this one. It's you. Like you,
Mhm. Yes.
right? Fly so smoothly. Um, Fly smoothly in the sky. I thought that your content was fine. This word here was grammatically accurate as well, but your delivery made it sound so awkward. Who would say, look, honestly, I cannot imitate what you did. Like with your intonation, I would recommend just removing the word so here, right? But normally you can certainly say, so the kite has a particular shape and it was able to fly like so smoothly in the sky. If you want to use the word so, that's how you're going to use it. Like it was able to fly so smoothly, right? You have to stretch it out a bit more. Ah, okay. Steep learning curve. Yes, I caught that. That was a very nice idiom. I personally wish that you used that idiom a bit earlier. I wish that you had used it a bit earlier and perhaps, drag some of the other types of content into your description. Because when you were talking about like, this topic in a very organic way, it was so monotonous. Like everything was super clear, but it was also like super monotonous. Like every single word was stretched and stressed in the same way. You know? Ah, Miss Rena, what are we gonna do with you? Maybe nothing because you have to do it yourself. Okay, thank you. Now, Miss Chang for all. So you were talking about non-la, a conical hat. Good. It's very iconic, to be honest. But I feel like these days we need an umbrella when we, head out because it's super like sunny outside. Anyway, um, Chang, I think that you're improving, but it's not super solid yet. So you need to keep on pushing it a bit more. Okay. I feel like Cho, you are also like on the cusp of greatness. You're about to make a quantum leap. You're about to improve. But don't let my compliment, go to your head. Just keep on pushing it a bit more, right? Because at the beginning, I thought that I thought your answer was fine, content-wise and fluency-wise. There were a couple of mistakes, of course, but I like your rhythm at the beginning, right? I dislike your rhythm towards the end. Okay. Now, after a day at school, don't use the word so here. No so. After a really hard day at school, we, something or another, do not use so here. It's were in Guangnam province. How can you fix this? Miss Chang, how can you fix this?
It's worse
Not
In
its was. Not its was.
it was
It was, right? Two more times. It was in Guangnam province.
it was in Guangnan province. It was in Guangnan province.
Okay. Palm leaves. You mean palm leaves?
Yes.
Okay, you need a V at the end there. Palm leaves.
Palm leaves.
The,
Palm
the V
leaves.
the V needs to be enunciated a bit more clearly. Palm leaves.
Palm leaves.
A bit better. All right. Encourage me to try. Can you say the word again? Try.
Try.
There's something wrong with that. Although I can't quite put a finger on it. Try, 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 try. One more time. Try.
Try.
Huh. Something is off, but I don't know what it is. All right, let's move on then. Towards the end of your speech, you essentially lost your wind. So, like instead of like going through a very large chunk of words or a short chunk, and then followed by, like a large chunk, you divided all the chunks into just two or three words, which I dislike. But we have covered this already, Chang, haven't we?
Yes.
Well,
We
fix
are.
that.
Yes.
You get to do that every once in a while, but not like 10 phrases in a row.
Yes.
Okay. Fix that towards the end. So at the beginning, your fluency was much better, but it wasn't like super accurate. And towards the end, it was more accurate, but then you didn't sound effortless. So yeah, I would say that overall there has been some sort of improvement, but it's not quite there yet. You need to just try to keep on pushing it a bit harder. All right. Now do that. Thank you. Now for the questions in speaking part three, again, shape of rectangular, you mean rectangle? That's a noun, by the way. Or rectangular shape. Okay. Also, there's no S at the end. One more time. Also.
Also,
Back home from schools, no S, just.
apple from school.
Yes, without the S. I think that even though you were able to answer my question, I personally thought that your idea development this time around wasn't as good as what you brought to the table during last week's session. And I think it was because you focused excessively on like personal experiences. It's not highly advised to do so when it comes to part three, you know? I think that, mentally speaking, the moment you like opt for that particular course of action, thinking about like your personal experiences, you're limiting the scope of your arguments. So instead of saying that, young people these days don't really care about kites anymore, but well, very old people who have like grandchildren seem to be very much interested in this type of toy because kites would allow like very young kids to essentially just take their eyes off their electronic screens, right? You focus excessively on your personal experience. So like even though you were able to like explain everything, I was not convinced. You didn't sound confident to my ears, mostly because you focus excessively on yourself. You could have talked about other people as well, right? And personally, I thought that approach might have been able to help you. So do that, okay? You have to like I don't think that you must avoid talking about yourself. It's just that from my personal experience, when it comes to speaking part three, focusing excessively from your personal experiences can backfire because you're limiting the scope of your arguments, right? Like, what if you don't play kites? Do you have nothing to say about them, right? But if you just keep yourself open-minded, You can perhaps talk about other people, like children in the countryside, the elderly that resides there, and everyone else. Okay. Yeah, that's all for Gang. I do have to say though that I feel like this time around your rhythm has got slightly better, but not all the way better. Slightly better. It doesn't sound You didn't sound like you were exaggerating your pronunciation, which was nice. But the improvement is not solid yet. I needed to just keep on pushing a bit more, try to imitate more, try to just copy, the way that people speak in English more. You might be able to break that pattern. But yeah, keep on pushing it. Thank you. Um, Now for Cho, if I have to say this is the dumbest phrase ever, I have no idea why people use this phrase so many times. Cho, it's better for you to say, but from my perspective, right? Or
Okay.
if you want to say, you have to say, you say is not, you cannot say, sorry, you cannot use the word say independently like that. You have to pair it up with something. For instance, you can say, well, if I had to say like something, anything about it, I would say that, right? This is a very nice phrase for you.
Okay.
Now, do it again. If I had to say like something or anything about it,
If I had to say something or anything about it, I would say that.
no or there. I said it was a deliberate pause.
Okay, okay. If I have to, if I,
If I
wait,
had,
if I had to say something about it, I would say that.
no, 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 no. If I had to say, you have to stretch it out a bit more. If I had to say something, anything about it, that's how you speculate. That's how you express speculations with your intonation.
Okay.
If I had to say, stretch it out a bit, if I had to say something, anything about it,
If I had to say something about it, I would say that
okay. Foreigner, foreigner.
foreigner,
Hmm. Hustle life, the hustle and bustle of life.
the hustle and bustle, the hustle and bustle of life.
Stop making up pronunciation, not hustle. Who taught you to pronounce it as hustle? It's just hustle, hustle, bustle.
The hustle and bustle of life.
There's no ST there. No
Hustle.
ST. Just hustle.
Okay. The hustle and bustle of life.
You idiot. That's not how you pronounce it. Not
This is
not show, not show, not stole. It's just soul.
so hustle.
Yes.
Okay, hustle and bustle of life.
And also, by the way, I know that it means like busy, but when you
Okay.
say hustles, oftentimes it means you only use hustles to describe people who have to take on a lot of jobs. Okay?
Okay.
Don't use it like that. It's gonna sound like super weird. It's fine to say busy, hectic, right? Or
Okay.
full schedule. Okay, now for
Okay.
Chang. Ah, Chang, would you say that you were given a hard question? Chang,
Yes.
would you consider this question to be difficult?
Yeah, I think it's really challenging for me.
Well, I guess I can sort of relate to what you're saying, on the account of me failing to answer questions about fashion or, science fiction or like AI and things like that. So yeah, I can relate to you. It's just that I felt like it was hard mostly because you decided to focus excessively on theoretical reasoning, right? You could have given me examples,
Yeah.
right? For instance, here in Vietnam, we have lots of fascinating traditions. I mean, for instance, during Tết holiday, older people tend to give younger people lucky money so that the young individuals will get like more luck in the next year. And of course, the young would say very nice words and wishes to their elderly. And oftentimes, I think that it's a very positive tradition to maintain because it helps to improve like family dynamics, and people can also have a really nice start at the beginning of a year. Getting money and like receiving like lots of like kind words from others, right? You focus too much on the reasoning aspect of your extensions. Well, I hope that you have learned a lesson today.
Sure.
There were a couple of mistakes. Contain lots of customs and tradition. Look, no one would ever say, like a country contains. It's just that my country, like countries have different customs and traditions. S's at the end. Residential people, just Chang. It's not residential people, it's just
Resident.
residents.
Residents. Yeah, residents.
The government are trying for protecting. The government is trying to, right? Is trying to, striving to what?
To protect.
The government is trying to protect. Okay, thank you. Now for Hương, I thought that your answers were fine, but you made one mistake here. One of the most practical, I think, advice or initiatives. If you say initiative, you have to add an S at the end, right? One more time. Initiatives.
Initiatives?
One of the most practical initiatives.
That's
One of the most practical initiatives?
Okay, fine. The rest of your answers were fine, and I wanted to twist you around to see if you would be able to maintain your fluency, which you were able to maintain. So, well, kudos to you, kiddo. That should be it then. Look, I do have to say that this particular group of topics is really challenging because you're talking about objects, but we don't really talk about objects, right? We often attach like the description of objects to other things. So I hope that you have learned a lesson today by extending your answers in other ways. Okay. Again, there are a few things that I need you all to remember. First of all, learn to extend your answers in different ways. For part 2, try to include some familiar ideas. For part 3, try to give more examples and don't overthink it. Okay, well, take it from me. And also, as far as your pronunciation is concerned, well, you need to fix your chunks. Okay, fix your chunks. Right, you have to diversify your rhythm. Sometimes you go fast, sometimes you go slow. But the problem with going fast is that the only way for you to actually go through a phrase with a fast pace is that you have to be able to know that phrase inside out. You have to use it like a lot of times already, that it takes you practically no energy whatsoever, to complete a thought about it. All right. And unfortunately, I do have to tell you this, you guys tend not to do so. Like you tend to just like actually talk about what you want to say. Like there's no repetition whatsoever. Like for instance, when I was listening to Miss Rena and then Chang Vo, honestly, I couldn't tell if you were repeating anything because you were not using familiar phrases. And truth to be told, like do what you must to improve your rhythm. I'm not quite sure about you, but I feel like you guys haven't really improved yet because you're still approaching the speaking test in the same way that you have after all this time. You're still speaking like completely off the cuff, which is fine. But if you do that too often and there's no familiar idea to tap into, I just think that you're not doing the right thing. I have to be very, very frank with you. I'm not saying that you're a bad speaker or that you're lazy or that you're incapable or anything. It's just that, I have done what you've been doing for many years. And well, I was able to break free from it. And I'm the one with the higher score. So from my personal experience, like this is the 11th lesson. And if you don't have a new habit, I honestly don't know what you want to do in that test. Okay, let's have a 10-minute break. 9:45, okay? 9:45. Let's have a short break. Sorry, not 9:45, 9:15, 9:15. Okay, people, let's get started. And let's resume. Mama. Where's Miss Rena? People, can you hear me? So, can you hear me? Okay. We're just gonna go through some of the sample answers. When it comes to like topics related to objects, my recommendation is not to overthink it. And by that I mean like instead of like thinking excessively about these objects, it's better for you to connect them to other things, like what you use them for, where you have seen them, how much money do you often pay, to buy one of them, or whether your friends have been using them on a regular basis, or when do you actually use them, instead of, for instance, instead of talking about how mirrors are made, or which brands are like most popular, or the process of like making mirrors and how reflective different brands are. You can just talk about mirrors and then you connect them with other things. Okay, now Tang, please, let's go through two sample answers. Would you use mirrors to decorate your room?
I think that's a very lovely suggestion. It's just that for the time being, I don't have my own room. I'm living in an apartment with my mom, and the living room double functions as my room. So I don't really think that I get to have my way with this particular room. But if the ball were in my court, then yes, I would definitely buy a nice mirror and put it somewhere in the room.
Okay. So I would recommend, sorry, I would take this phrase back. It's just not safe to say to get to have your way with something, because oftentimes it has a sexual implication, right? So I'm gonna
Yes.
use I don't really think that I can, just do what I want. I can just do what I want with this particular room, right? But if the ball were in my court, a very nice idiom, if essentially if it were up to me, then yes, I would definitely buy a nice mirror and put it somewhere in a room. So as you can tell, like the bulk of the content is not even about the mirror. Okay, it's just like a general description. Okay, general description. Or you can say, well, I think that is a very lovely suggestion, although I'm not quite sure where I could place, mirrors. I mean, like the walls are pretty bland right now, but I don't think that my mom would allow me to, pin any holes to hang mirrors. And as for the large ones, I'm not quite sure where they're gonna fit, because my room is pretty messy. I think there are lots of like stuff like furniture and books and like my personal clothes like everywhere. So I'm not quite sure where I could put these mirrors. But yeah, I mean, it does sound like a lovely idea. Okay, so it's not that much about like the decorative function of mirrors. It's just about um well, mirrors and then other things. And this is a good example of the other things that you can use to talk about mirrors. Okay. Down here, Joe, please. Do you usually take a mirror with you?
I don't think so. And I think that is mostly because it is unnecessary. I mean, first of all, I don't really need to look at myself that often, since I have a very simple hairstyle and I only need to run my fingers through my hair to fix it. And when I need to really have a look at my face, I can use my iPhone for that. So a mirror is not necessary.
Hmm. Okay. Well, as you can tell, this is also not that much about mirrors, right? I think that this is the only part where the mirror actually is necessary. The only part. where mirrors are mentioned. Okay. So look, I'm practicing what I preach here to you guys. Like when you talk about objects, you don't really have to like think too directly into the object that you are asked to talk about. Yeah, I don't think so. I think that it's mostly because it's unnecessary. I mean, first of all, I don't really need to look at myself that often. Right? So that's the function of a mirror. What do you need for? You need to look at yourself. You use a mirror to check your look, to check your appearance, right? Since I have a very simple hairstyle and I only need to run my fingers through my hair to fix it. And when I really need to have a look at my face, I can already use my phone for that. So, a mirror is just not necessary. Okay. Again, this, as you can tell, like this question is about mirrors, and the answer is still about the necessity of having a mirror, like bringing it with you when you get out and about. But most of the content is not even about the mirror. Okay. Connect to other topics instead. All right. We're going to move on, jump down all the way to borrowing and lending. Look, what I'm trying to tell you is that you can talk about mirrors and other objects. And of course, there are questions and topics that you have never encountered in your life. And it's very likely that you're not going to be able to, be like super specific when it comes to things like that. But like my advice is always for you to connect these objects with other things instead. Like when you talk about like the decorative function of mirrors in your room, you can just talk about your room first, and then you decide whether you want to, put a mirror there anywhere, right? Here, you can just talk about your room first before deciding if mirrors are even necessary. Okay. I know that, maybe you're already aware of this approach. It's just that, from my observation, you tend not to apply this particular approach when you speak because your attention is on mirrors. You have to use words related to mirrors. You have to think about mirrors. You think about the sizes, the the reflective quality, and like everything in between. But look, that's just not necessary. Okay, you can connect mirrors to other things as well. Let's move on then. We have other sample answers here, but well, it's the same mechanism. Like you talk about mirrors, but instead of like being like super specific about mirrors, you can talk about them in other ways as well. Okay, down here, borrowing and lending. Bum, 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 bum. Gang, please. How do you feel when people don't return the things they have borrowed from you?
Well, I guess it depends on the object. I mean, for certain things, I don't mind people not returning them to me. And oftentimes, they are very trivial things like, pens, pencils, and erasers. Essentially, all of the things that I can easily buy again. And there are also other things that will probably make me mad if people don't return them to me. And one of those things is money. And I guess the reason here is pretty obvious. We all have to work around the clock to make a living. So when you do lend people money, you do so expecting that they will keep their word and return the money to you.
Sorry, okay. I wonder why it jumped like a mile like that. You do so expecting. There's a particular rhythm here. You do so. That's one complete phrase. As in, like you do when you lend people money, you lend people money with the expectation that. Now, one more time. So when you do lend people money, you do so expecting that.
Do we need a comma there?
No, not
Okay.
comma there. It's not. It's it's a it's a speaking thing. You don't need a comma there. You just have to
All right.
mind your grammar.
Okay. So
One more
when
time.
you do, yeah. So when you do lend people money, you do so expecting that they will keep their word and return the money to you.
I dislike the way that you're pronouncing these words. Like it's too choppy. Stretch the words out. Again, this is the sixth time maybe the fifth time I've mentioned this, but you need to stretch your words out. When you speak, you naturally stretch your words out. But oftentimes that come at the expense of like the overall flow. Like you can stretch the words out, but then the flow of your answer is sacrificed. Like you can't really use long phrases. But this time around, even though you can use that, you can cover long phrases, your pronunciation is super choppy. It's always like, so when you do lend people money, you do so expecting that they will keep their word. Like it's too choppy and I dislike it. You have to fix it. And honestly, I'm not quite sure what else to tell you. You just need to stretch the words out. So when you do lend do, that's what you do normally, and for some of you here as well, you normally do that when you speak, but for some reason when you read, you become so robotic and your pronunciation gets super choppy that it's like hella annoying. Like, what's going on here? Just stretch the words out, gang. That's a good discipline to have. So when you
I will
do
try.
lend people money, you do so expecting that they will keep their word and return the money to you.
Again.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you do lend people money, you do so expecting that people will keep their word and return the money to you.
Return the money to you. Breathe the word out.
Return the money to you.
No, return the money to you.
Return the money to you.
Something like that, kind, because like when you speak normally, you stretch the words out, but when you read, you become like super lazy, and like all the words are extra choppy for no reason.
Yeah,
I wonder
because
why that's the case, though. I mean,
they're
shouldn't
not
you
my
just
word.
take your time? Hmm. Okay, let's continue. So, from this particular example, you can see again that you don't really, well, this is a rather generic topic, right? Borrowing and lending things. So you have to think about like things in general, and you have to take examples, right? So, but I guess it depends on the object. I mean, for certain things, I don't mind people not returning them to me. And oftentimes these are like very trivial things, like, pens, pencils, and erasers. So examples, essentially all the things I can easily buy again. And then there are also other things that would probably make me mad if people don't return them to me. I do have to say that this is a very long sentence, and this is advanced grammar. You really have to like think things through before you get this particular phrase out. And I mean, if you're not that strong in terms of like grammar, it's like you're gonna have a hard time covering this phrase on your own. But like when you speak English, one of the best ways for you to improve your reflexes is copying, like copying, borrowing phrases from people. So but this is to address Gang and also other people here. I know that these are my sample answers, but I'd have to tell you this. We've been talking about this like a lot of times already. It's perfectly fine for you to rely on your own answers and your own ideas, but I do have to tell you this: if you're not willing to learn from other people, it's really hard for you to improve your score. And that, in my opinion, that is the ultimate goal of your participation in this course. I can help you with your confidence. I can help you with your um, I can help you with your lexical resources. I can help you improve your ideas and use better phrases. But when it comes to if you want to get a higher score in the speaking test, there are certain instructions that you cannot ignore. And like I think that I've been essentially singing the same tune ever since you guys started this course. Whenever you decided to do so. I mean, for instance, for Cho, I've been telling you to essentially use familiar ideas from the get-go. For Tang, I've been telling you to try to speak a bit faster as you go through your own ideas, right? Because your speaking speed is too slow for me, and there's no variation whatsoever, right? Now for Miss Rena, I think Miss Rena is here. I feel like I've been saying the same thing regarding your intonation. Like there's no rhythm whatsoever. You tend to like pronounce all of your words equally clearly. And unfortunately, that's not what they want for band 8. For 8, you want to get to band 8, you have to be clear, but at the same time, you have to be able to flexibly alternate. Sometimes you go slow, sometimes you go fast, sometimes you go with very short chunks, sometimes you go with very long chunks. Right? That's part of the equation. And if you're not able to do that, you're not gonna get an 8. Not anytime, anywhere, doing any sort of test with the IELTS system. Okay. And that's for Gang as well. I understand that these are not your words, but um like you have to learn something. All right, you have to learn something because like your particular style of speaking has already given you a score, which is fine. But if you're not willing to learn and change and evolve, you're going to get the same score, right? I hope that's what you want because like I'm trying to tell you the truth and what you should expect from the test. You can use my words, you can use anybody's words. It doesn't really matter whose words you use, but you have to change your rhythm. You have to stretch the words out instead of being lazy and robotic and speaking in a very choppy kind of way. And there is no either or here. Right? You cannot say, well, look, if I read the script, I'm going to sound robotic, but I'm going to have a high level of fluency. If I use my own ideas, I'm going to sound, more natural, more relaxed, but I'm not going to be as accurate. Well, if you resign to the fact that you have to choose one or two, essentially one of the two facets of your speaking, it means that you're not ready for a higher score. And essentially you're denying the purpose and the objective of this course and what I'm trying to do here. Okay. So that's just to talk to Gang and the whole thing about like your ideas, my ideas. I don't care. I honestly don't care. If you're reading, you're gonna read to the best of your abilities because that's what I deserve and that's what you deserve as well. If you can stretch, you're gonna stretch the hell out of it. I want you to do that. If you can copy to the best of your abilities. If you can like switch your rhythms, do that to the best of your abilities because I'm gonna judge you based on that. All right. And look, if you don't want me to like give you any sort of like fair and critical evaluations, you can send me a message saying that, look, I'm just here for, a normal lesson just to, polish on my English skills and I don't need to improve my score. Well, that's fine. Okay, I'm not going to say another word about your performance, but my assumption here is that since you have signed up for this course, you're actually aiming for a higher band score. And there are conditions that you have to, that you have to meet in order to get the higher band score. And I understand that, it's easy for you to hop on the internet and see that, okay, this kid has improved from 6.5 to 7.5. That kid has jumped from like 7 to 8. Now, in my case, like Miss Rena, you knew me since 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 2019, if I'm not mistaken. At the time, I was an 7.5 in speaking, right?
Yes.
And then I did a jump to 8.5, also during that time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, maybe I
Yeah,
didn't.
sure. You didn't pay attention to that. Fine. That's fine. But back then, when you first knew me, I was a 7.5, and now, I'm occasionally a 9, occasionally occasionally an 8.5, and all that thing. But thank you, Miss Rena. I wasn't trying to ask you anything. I just wanted to have some testimonials. Look, what I'm trying to tell you is that I understand this IELTS thing as a test, and it's really hard for me to tell you that, look, you can't just be natural and get a higher score because that's not the case. Like a 6 can be natural in his own way or her own way, right? A 7 can be natural in, its own way. But if you're aiming for an 8 or an 8.5 or 7 or 7.5, you have to up your game. Right. So when you come into this class, I expect you to take my instructions and do everything to the best of your abilities because I know you can do so. Right. If you cannot do that, I would not. If you're so like below par, I would never ask you to to do these things. Like if you cannot even read this word, trivial, what's the point? What's the point of me asking you to stretch this word out, right? So do something about what I've told you to do, people. You can practice with your friends, or you can practice alone, something or another. I mean, when I like learned to improve my skills, I had no one to work with. I had to rely on myself. And I'm not saying that you have to rely on yourself because you have me here as well. You can hop on these support sessions and ask for extra practice and whatnot. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's really up to you and your sense of discipline. Like, have you been stretching the words out? Have you been learning phrases? Right? Because honestly, if you pin your hopes on things like, well, look, I'm just gonna do this fair bit of like practice and I'm gonna have a higher score. I just don't think it's gonna happen to you. I hate to be a hater, although I'm really good at hating on people, right? But do something, people, because honestly, as a teacher, I can see where you can go. If you just take my advice and practice hard enough to actually make that piece of advice part of your arsenal. But whenever I point at the same thing again and again, it really bugs me out. Oh, okay, let's continue. Look, the bottom line when it comes to speaking part one, and the topic of objects is that you should probably connect the object that you're thinking about to other things. Okay, like how do you feel? Yeah, you can talk about how you feel. You can say, well, sometimes I don't really care, right? Because these things are very trivial. And what things are trivial? Pens, pencils, erasers. They're not that important. So why are they not that important? Mostly because, I can buy them easily again, right? And then there are other things that would probably make me mad if people don't return them to me. And one of those things is money, right? Why? Well, the reason here is pretty obvious. We all have to work around the clock to make a living. So when you do lend people money, you do so expecting that they will keep their word and return the money to you. Okay? That's all. All right. So try to connect borrowing like these topics to other things. Now we're gonna jump straight to this script here. Describe a traditional product. You're gonna see the basis of this answer right away. Tiang Val, please just from here. Oh, sorry, just do popcorn. We're gonna do popcorn. Yeah, I think that you guys know at this point you guys already know the drill. Um, Tiang Val, yeah. Let's hope that we're
Yes.
off to a good start.
Okay. Okay, so the traditional product that sprang to mind when I read the question was silk. So I want to talk about that day. Well, I don't know much. Châu,
Châu, Châu, Châu, are you even there? Well, Châu is not here. So, Tiang Val, can you choose someone else? Well, I don't know
yes.
much about silk, to be honest, and then continue.
To be honest, I'll say Rina.
Of the fact that it's a clothing material, and I guess one of the defining characteristic of this particular material is the fact that it's very breathable and it's very thảo hương.
Hold on, is she here? Oh, she's not here. She got lagged out, I think. Someone else then?
Chánh.
High maintenance, like people who wear silk tend to be very wealthy and they have to preserve their silk clothes in cảnh.
In specific ways, which are obvious. Chang.
Obviously, not obvious. Obviously.
Don't know because I don't wear silk. My mom has purchased silk products a few times, and I think that because chánh
Because of the fact that it's really hard to keep the clothes together, she has also decided to switch to Rina.
Other more durable. Châu.
Lazy people.
Materials. Now I first learned about Chang.
Miss Chang Võ, it's you.
I missed that.
Learn about.
Learned about this traditional product when I was in high school student, and it was actually a part chánh
Of a chapter in chemistry, and I think that it was organic chemistry. I remember that particular part because it was really hard for me at the beginning. I just couldn't really get.
Wrap my head around what my teacher was talking about. And there was this project at the end of the unit, and we had to do some research into clothing materials. And of course, our team decided to go with Chang.
silk, and I have to say dâu.
Joe, it's your turn, I have to say.
I miss it. Can you?
Here at the beginning.
Okay, at the beginning, when I read about Chang,
Silk, I didn't really understand its importance to Rina.
Our culture, and I only Chang.
Focus on the chemical composition of the material.
Okay, fine. So we're talking about silk here. Let's go through the paragraphs. I don't know much about silk, to be honest, outside of the fact that it's a clothing material. And one of the defining characteristics of this particular material is that it's very breathable and super high maintenance. As you can tell, like this is not exactly like a super difficult choice to go with. This is really just like generic vocabulary about sport. Okay, generic vocabulary about clothes and outfits in general, not sports, not sports, just clothes and materials. So you know that the silk is smooth, it's high maintenance, and it's very breathable, right? And then those who wear silk tend to be very wealthy, and they have to preserve their silk clothes in very specific ways, which I obviously don't know because I don't wear silk. Okay, so this I think that you can just use this about virtually any other type of like clothing material. Not that you have to, not that it's true if you wear leather, it's not going to be breathable. It's going to be very insulating, right? It's going to keep you warm. It's going to be like super shiny, right? It's going to be sturdy as well. If you talk about cotton, it's going to be soft, flexible, breathable, and it can also absorb moisture very well, right? But look, I would say that it's not that like super difficult to talk about silk, especially when these words are really superficial, in my opinion. Down here, my mom has purchased silk products a few times, but I think that because of the fact that it's really hard to keep the clothes together, she has also decided to switch to other more durable materials. Now, my mom has nothing to do with this particular topic, right? But I want to drag my mom into this anyway, and I want to talk about her shopping habit, right? I want to talk about her shopping habit. I want to talk about the fact that, yeah, she has purchased silk products more than a few times, right? And down here, when I learned about this traditional product, this is a generic answer, a typical answer, right? It's about school. When I was a high school student, and it was actually a part of a chapter in chemistry, and I think that it was organic chemistry. Now, why would I talk about organic chemistry? Because it's up my alley. It's something that I know how to talk about very well. I'm not going to talk about the materials I know next to nothing about. I mean, I'm not going to talk about conical hats. I'm not going to talk about Aozai. I'm not going to talk about Bangchun cake because I have no idea how to describe these things, and I have no context whatsoever. Like, what's the point of like talking about these things if I just don't have enough vocabulary, right? So, look, this is a piece of advice for you. Again, as you can tell, this is a practical answer, by the way. I actually talk like this in a mock test. And what I'm trying to show you is that like I could have rolled with any other traditional products like Aozai and then, all kinds of clothing and like products like, chung cake and like, all other types of food. But I decided not to. Why? Because I had no idea how to describe these things. I wouldn't be able to describe kites, right? Outside of the fact that, they're supposed to be light and like they seem to be good fun, right? I wouldn't be able to talk about, bánh chưng mostly because I don't know how to describe how they are made. I can talk about that holiday, but I'm not going to be able to like say a lot about, Tet holiday in general. And like I know a thing or two about like conical hats and how iconic they are, but I don't know how they are made. Right? Even if I know how they are made in Vietnamese, I don't know how to describe the composition of the hat in English, right? So I instinctively chose this particular approach because, well, I knew something about science. I knew something about things related to science. So silk or any other material would be really easy for me to talk about, like cotton clothes, right? Or I could have gone with Aozai, but then again, I knew that I wouldn't be able to actually describe Aozai in full details. I wouldn't be able to talk about, the pieces and the design and the form fitting and whatnot. So I decided not to go with Aozai. I stuck with silk because silk could be connected to chemistry. See that? Here. And of course, the overall experience of learning things. When I was a high school student, it was actually a part of a chapter in chemistry, and I think it was organic chemistry. Right? I remember that particular part because it was really hard for me at the beginning. I just couldn't really wrap my head around it, about what my teacher was talking about. And then there was this project at the end of the unit, and we had to do some research into like, clothing materials. And our course, of course, our team decided to go with silk. I could have I could have um I could have opted for a different context. I could have said something like, well, I first learned about this traditional product when I was very young, but it was not until when I started working as a teacher that I actually, dug deep into, the history of this particular material. So during that time, I was working for my previous company, and then, I was just working around the clock trying to piece together a lesson about silk, right? And I had to look up on the internet. I was jumping from YouTube to TikTok to, Facebook and all other social media sites just to collect all the bits of information that I could, get my hands on. And it was a lot of work, but luckily I was able to, find my groove, and I was able to, put together a presentation related to this particular material. You understand? Right? So I could have changed this into a different context of work, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that, as you can tell, the actual part, let's say this is the actual part, right? Breathable, high maintenance. That's it. That is the only like topic specific part that my answer had, right? The rest of my answers, look, I can use this to talk about virtually anyone. For instance, Joe, have you ever bought silk in your life?
Not yet.
Okay,
Just
then
now.
I can say something like this. I have a really good friend who I have a really good friend named Cho, and she has never purchased silk products in her life. And I think it's mostly because of the fact that it's really hard to keep silk clothes together. But I mean, she certainly hopes that in the future she'll be able to get her hands on these items because they look really nice. You
Oh,
understand here?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
using you. I'm dragging you in. It doesn't really matter who. Like I can talk. I can throw Cheng in the mix as well. Now, Cheng, have you ever bought like silk products?
I've never bought one in my life.
Sure. That do you want to buy one for someone else in your life?
Uh, Actually, yes. Maybe for my mom or my
Sure. Then I
wife.
can say something like
Yeah.
this. I have a really
Yeah.
close friend named Chang, and he has never purchased silk products ever in his life. And I think that it's mostly because, they are very expensive and it's really hard, to keep the clothes together because they're so fragile. But he told me that he would want to buy silk dresses for his mom. It's just that he needs to find like just the right brand and the right discount codes. Understand what I'm doing here? Look, I can drag all of you in because I talk about this all the time. It's just about buying things together, buying things, right? So as you can tell, only one detail, only this part here is topic specific. Everything else can be used in other contexts. Okay. So again, I'm repeating the same message. I think that you guys need to like incorporate some of the ideas you have learned in your answers. You can start with my ideas. Like I'm not offended. I think that I'm actually super flattered. And for some reason, like when I listen to people and they have really nice things to say, I tend to just copy them, you know? When it comes to English and also Vietnamese, I tend to just copy them. But for you guys, I feel like you tend to make an effort to avoid repeating or borrowing my ideas. You're gonna stick with your own script, with your own thoughts, which is fine. But you know what? Like, do what you must. You have to improve your fluency. You can do your own thing if you want. You don't need to borrow my ideas, but you better show me that you can improve because honestly, for a lot of you, it's like we're talking about the same thing again and again, and it's the same issue every single week. Like every single time I hear you, answering my questions, I listen to your answers and I say, well, hold on. That is like a very authentic answer, but there's nothing that sounds familiar. Like every single time is a different thing. Every single time is a different thing. I understand that it's your like organic thought, but it's not a good approach, right? If you're not willing to repeat, how will you learn? How will you improve your accuracy? How will you improve your fluency? When every single time it's a new puzzle, it's a new maze, right? So do what you must. You can repeat your own ideas or you can borrow my ideas, but do something because honestly, if you don't repeat, I don't think that you can improve. Okay, not with your like excessive reliance on like naturalness. I hate to break it to you, and I think that other teachers might have a different perspective. It's just that, even for other teachers, I don't think that they can just talk about like virtually anything under the sun and still sound like completely effortless and fluent and like fluent. I don't think so. I mean, not even 9.0s can do that. They really have to tap into the ideas that they have already prepared, right? That's all. I mean, you guys need to do something. Something. Okay. Now for speaking part three, I just need one example to clear my case. That's all. This one here, Miss Rina, why are traditional products important?
I think that this can be explained in various ways. The first reason is that traditional products are in a way part of our cultural heritage. I mean, here in Vietnam, there are various traditional products that are celebrated and honored in mainstream media like bánh chưng, áo dài, and also silk. And people often talk about these products with a lot of pride because they beyond the physical presentation, they also represent some of the cultural values that have persisted with our country for a very long period of time. For instance, when people think about bánh chưng, they think about the tradition associated with Tết. When people talk about áo dài, they think about the beauty of a woman. Men also wear outside too, but for some reasons we are not as appreciated as women in that particular department. So yeah, I think that traditional products are important because they in a way embody the values that we believe in.
Okay. Well then, Miss Rena, can you tell me what is the most obvious way of dealing with abstract questions like this?
I think just try to get more examples to answer and clarify your point.
Yes. Right. And also don't rely excessively on your personal experience, right?
Yes.
It's really hard. I mean, I do have to say. I mean, not for nothing. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm screaming at you through the screen, and as you can tell, I was screaming so loudly that the screen was shooketh. But look, I've experienced this and I understand the frustration. But for some reason, I feel like I'm the only one who's frustrating with your lack of progression. I can clearly see that you can improve, but every single time we take two steps forward, you guys gonna take a step back when we sign off from the class. Now that gets on my nerves. That's all. Look, so Cheng, can you see that this is how you can deal with like abstract questions? Take examples, okay?
Yes.
Right? But of course, you had to practice. You can
Yeah,
look, I don't
sure.
know what you do in your daily schedule, but like if you tell me that you spend only 2 hours practicing speaking and these 2 hours are spent on this particular class, you're not going to improve. I hate to break it
Yeah.
to you, and I feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot here, but I'm being very honest with you. I give you some instructions, I give you, some feedback during the class. I need you to take the ball and run with it during the week, right? You can do what you must. You can perhaps DM some of the members in this class, or if you want my help, then you can just ask me, and then I can like link you two together, okay, as you speak. But a lot of times, my suggestion is this, like you practice and then you bear in mind my instructions. And it's mostly because, when I like improved from 7.5 to 8, 8.5 and 9, I had no one to talk to because I wouldn't trust anybody else, right? I wouldn't be able to take advice or criticisms from others as well. So I would, rely on myself. So, I would repeat the same thing again and again until my fluency improved. And that's something that I still do right now, right? You see that I use, essentially the same idioms every once in a while. For instance, at the beginning of this class, I said that some of you managed to hit the ground running, but failed to maintain your momentum, right? Yeah, so like for speaking part 3, try to think of more examples. But you know what? Like that piece of advice is not going to cut it if you don't practice on a regular basis. At this point, Tang and everyone else, I'm pretty sure you have enough files to go through. Just practice, like give it like 15 minutes every day. Every day, give my script a chance. 15 minutes, stretch the words out, for Gain, for instance, and for Cho as well. Um, like develop your ideas in different ways, right? Give examples, so on and so forth. Okay. Because honestly, I can tell that in this class, all of you possess the ability to improve. It's just that I feel like my advice tends to fall on stony ground because the moment you move, like the moment you get out of this class, you just forget about what I have already told you. So we're back to square one again. And I'm telling you this because I'm back to square one on multiple occasions as well. Okay. All right, that's all. Next week we're gonna have a revision session, and again, I can organize classes for you guys to essentially just hop in and talk practice together. Maybe I need to do that now, right? I did that a couple of months. I did that a couple of years ago, but it didn't work. So perhaps I need to bring it back, right? Like host classes and then you can just hop in, host rooms, and then you hop in and do your fair share practice with your friends. Well, some food for thought. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.